Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following video discusses shifting demographic trends, relationship dynamics, and educational platforms surrounding marriage and divorce in America. This content is intended strictly for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes. It does not constitute legal, financial, relationship, or psychological advice. Family law, asset division, and marital regulations vary significantly by state and jurisdiction. Viewers should always conduct their own due diligence and consult with qualified legal professionals, certified financial planners, or licensed therapists regarding their specific individual circumstances. Something fundamentally unprecedented is fracturing the foundational bedrock of American society, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the traditional political or economic crises you see on the nightly news. Right now across the United States, a quiet, massive, and structural shift is occurring in how adults approach the single most important contract of their lives, marriage. For decades, the conventional American narrative dictated a linear path: education, career, marriage, suburban home, and family. But in the current landscape, that script has not just been flipped, it has been entirely shredded. Statistics from the United States Census Bureau and recent demographic evaluations indicate that marriage rates have plummeted to historic lows, while the median age for first marriages has climbed to an all-time high of nearly 30 for men and 28 for women. Yet, underneath these widely reported numbers lies a far more shocking, subterranean reality. A completely new demographic of older Americans is driving a massive surge in late-stage marital dissolutions, a phenomenon researchers term gray divorce. While overall divorce rates for younger generations are actually stabilizing or declining due to a lower volume of marriages overall, the rate for adults over the age of 50 has roughly doubled since the 1990s, and for those over 65 it has tripled. This massive divergence in who is separating, why they are separating, and how they manage the aftermath has created a multi-billion-dollar systemic problem. It has left millions of Americans navigating an incredibly complex, adversarial, and financially ruinous legal system, designed in the mid-20th century that is completely unequipped for the modern digital era. Because of this monumental friction, a highly controversial, disruptive new industry has emerged out of Silicon Valley and the online education space. A network of digital platforms, community hubs, and strategic academies colloquially known as the Online Divorce University. These platforms are radically democratizing access to tactical separation strategies, asset protection methodologies, and psychological coping mechanisms, effectively turning a deeply private, emotional crisis into a calculated, curriculum-based strategic maneuver. If you do not understand how these changing demographics and these new online institutional platforms are converging, you are completely blind to the hidden forces shaping modern American relationships, wealth distribution, and legal battlegrounds. This deep dive masterclass is designed specifically to solve that exact information asymmetry for the American audience today. Over the course of this comprehensive analysis, we are going to unpack the exact socio-economic catalysts driving these new demographic shifts, moving past superficial explanations to examine the real macroeconomic factors, shifting cultural paradigms, and evolving gender dynamics in wealth accumulation. We will explore exactly why traditional marital structures are failing specific age cohorts, and more importantly, we will dissect the mechanics of this new online educational phenomenon. You will learn precisely how these digital academies operate, how they train individuals to navigate the complex legal labyrinth without exhausting their entire life savings on traditional billable hour attorneys, and what this means for the future of the American family unit. This is about equipping you with an objective, data-driven understanding of historical trends, potential outcomes, and real-world case studies, so that you can comprehend the shifting landscape of modern American society, protect your financial future, and understand the new rules of engagement in a rapidly evolving cultural environment. To truly grasp the magnitude of what is happening, we must first dissect the sheer scale of the changing demographic landscape within the United States. Consider the data surrounding the baby boomer generation and older Generation X. These cohorts grew up during an era where marriage was not merely a personal choice, but a primary societal expectation and an essential milestone for economic stability. Decades ago, the division of labor was frequently starker, with one primary earner and one domestic manager. Fast forward to the present day, and the structural reality is radically different. Longevity has increased significantly, meaning that individuals hitting the age of 50 or 60 look forward to 20, 30, or even 40 more years of active, healthy life. When the nest empties and children move out, couples are forced to look at one another across a kitchen table, and realize that their internal alignment has completely dissolved. Historically, couples might have stayed together simply to avoid societal stigma or financial destitution. Today, cultural stigmas have evaporated, and perhaps more importantly, the economic independence of women has fundamentally altered the power dynamics within the household. With more women holding advanced degrees, participating at high levels in the workforce, and controlling independent retirement accounts, the financial necessity to remain in an unfulfilling or dysfunctional relationship has diminished to near zero. Concurrently, look at the opposite end of the spectrum with millennials and Generation Z. The demographic data here shows an entirely different, yet equally disruptive trend. Younger Americans are actively delaying marriage or bypassing it entirely in favor of cohabitation agreements. The reasons are profoundly economic. Saddled with historic levels of student loan debt, facing an extraordinarily volatile housing market, and navigating an economy defined by inflation and wage stagnation, younger generations view marriage not as a stepping stone to adulthood, but as a luxury good to be achieved only after absolute financial security is attained. Consequently, when relationships do dissolve in this younger demographic, they do not show up in traditional court registries as standard divorces. Instead, they manifest as complex, messy breakups involving joint property ownership without any clear legal framework to govern the split. This dual-front demographic crisis has exposed a massive vulnerability in the American legal infrastructure. The traditional family court system in the United States is inherently adversarial, archaic, and extraordinarily expensive. A standard contested legal separation can easily cost tens of thousands of dollars in retainer fees alone, with billable hours rapidly consuming marital assets, home equity, and retirement funds. The system is designed to benefit the intermediaries rather than the participants. For decades, the average citizen faced a grim binary choice. Either pay an exorbitant sum to an attorney to navigate the bureaucratic maze, or attempt to do it alone, completely blind to the complex filing requirements, statutory deadlines, and critical asset valuation rules, frequently resulting in catastrophic financial errors. This precise pain point is exactly what triggered the rise of the online divorce university. Recognizing that millions of Americans are tech-savvy, accustomed to digital learning, and utterly desperate for affordable, strategic guidance, innovators began building comprehensive, structured online educational platforms designed to treat the process of relationship dissolution exactly like an intensive collegiate course or a corporate training program. These are not merely document preparation websites that print out generic forms. These are highly sophisticated digital ecosystems offering step-by-step video modules, interactive asset division calculators, community forums moderated by industry experts, and psychological resilience training. They teach everyday citizens how to decode legal jargon, how to organize their financial disclosures with forensic precision, and how to manage communications with high-conflict spouses in a way that minimizes legal exposure and emotional fallout. By analyzing historical trends, we can see that this is part of a broader, unstoppable macro trend: the unbundling of traditional professional services. Just as online platforms revolutionized personal finance, tax preparation, and higher education, the digital space is now systematically dismantling the monopoly of the traditional family law firm. The implications of this shift are profound and wide-reaching. It is shifting the balance of power back to the individual, reducing the timeline of legal proceedings from years to months, and preserving capital that would otherwise be entirely vaporized by the legal machine. As we peel back the layers of this societal transformation, it becomes increasingly clear that we are witnessing the birth of an entirely new paradigm in American life. One where technology, evolving demographics, and decentralized education are fundamentally rewriting the terms of human relationships and financial survival. To understand how this disruption works in practice, we have to look at the specific catalyst of this revolution: the collapse of the traditional legal gatekeeper model. For nearly a century, the American legal system operated as a closed loop. If you wanted to dissolve a marriage, you had to pay for access to the law. Information was siloed behind expensive paywalls and ivory tower credentials. But in 2026, we are seeing the final stages of that silo being demolished. To visualize the impact, imagine a typical American professional named David living in a high-cost area like Northern Virginia. David is 54 years old, has spent 30 years building a career in mid-level management, and holds a significant portion of his net worth in a 401k and home equity. When David and his spouse of 25 years decide to part ways, the traditional route presents him with a devastating financial forecast. Historical trends show that a standard litigated divorce for a couple with David's assets can easily cost between $40,000 and $100,000 in combined legal fees. This is due to the billable hour model, where every email, every phone call, and every court filing is a microtransaction that drains the marital estate. In this legacy system, David is a passive participant. He hands over a retainer and hopes his representative navigates the system effectively. But now, David discovers the new divorce university online. Instead of a $40,000 bill, he pays a flat enrollment fee for a comprehensive digital curriculum. This platform does not provide legal advice. Instead, it provides something arguably more powerful in the modern age: high-level procedural literacy and strategic data management. David logs into a dashboard that looks more like a high-end executive training program than a legal service. He starts with Module 1, Forensic Asset Mapping. In this step-by-step process, David is taught how to categorize his assets into separate versus marital property based on the specific statutes of his state. He learns how to use digital tools to scrape 10 years of bank statements and use artificial intelligence to flag inconsistencies or hidden accounts. By the time he finishes the first week of the curriculum, David has produced a comprehensive financial disclosure packet that is more organized and detailed than what most junior associates at a law firm would produce in 40 hours of work. He has essentially automated the most expensive part of the legal discovery process. This shift represents a massive transfer of labor from the expensive professional to the informed individual. The online divorce university model relies on the concept of the pro-se litigant, but with a massive technological upgrade. Pro-se, or representing oneself, used to be a recipe for disaster in American courts because individuals lacked the technical knowledge to follow local rules of civil procedure. Now, these platforms provide templates that are dynamically updated to match the specific requirements of various jurisdictions, from Los Angeles County to the suburbs of Atlanta. These platforms are creating a more efficient market. When David eventually does hire a mediator or a consulting attorney for a final review, he isn't handing them a box of disorganized receipts. He is handing them a polished digital dossier. This reduces the professional's workload by 80%, leading to potential outcomes where the final legal bill is a fraction of the historical average. Beyond the financial mechanics, we must examine the changing demographics of the instructors and the students within these digital academies. We are seeing a new class of professional emerge: the divorce coach and the financial neutral. These are often former family law attorneys or forensic accountants who realized the traditional litigation model was broken and transitioned into the educational space. They are creating content that addresses the psychological warfare often used in the legal system. For example, consider a case study involving a woman named Sarah, a 42-year-old nurse in Ohio. Sarah is dealing with a high-conflict separation where the other party is using legal filings as a tool of harassment. In a traditional setting, Sarah would be in a constant state of reactive panic, calling her lawyer every time a hostile email arrives, with each call costing her $300. Within the online university framework, Sarah enters a specific track called High Conflict Management and Communication. She is taught the BIF method: brief, informative, firm, and friendly. She learns how to use secure communication apps that are admissible in court, and how to strip the emotional charge out of her responses. She is participating in a peer-to-peer community of thousands of other individuals in the same demographic, sharing real-time data on which mediators are most effective and which judges prioritize certain types of custody arrangements. This is the crowdsourcing of legal strategy. This deep dive into the digital academy model also reveals a fascinating trend in how Americans are valuing their time and their privacy. The traditional court system is a public theater. Documents are often public record, and hearings are held in open courtrooms. The online university movement leans heavily into private dispute resolution and out-of-court settlements. They provide the educational tools to prepare for mediation so effectively that the court becomes a mere rubber stamp for a privately negotiated agreement. By educating the public on how to bypass the courtroom, these platforms are effectively starving the litigation machine of its fuel. But the most profound change is found in the data-driven approach to the future. These platforms are using historical trends from thousands of past users to predict potential outcomes for current students. For instance, if a user inputs their income, their spouse's income, and the length of the marriage, the platform's algorithm can show them a range of alimony outcomes based on recent case studies in their specific county. This eliminates the uncertainty that attorneys often use to justify long, drawn-out negotiations. When both parties have access to the same educational data, the incentive to fight over unrealistic expectations vanishes. We are seeing this play out across the United States in 2026 as a form of social contagion. As more people successfully navigate their separations using these educational tools, they share their success stories on social media, further eroding the prestige and necessity of the traditional legal model. It is a classic example of disruptive innovation. A cheaper, more accessible, and more user-friendly product is moving from the fringes to the mainstream, forcing an entire established industry to either adapt or become obsolete. However, this democratization of the process also brings new risks and challenges that the American public is just beginning to understand. If everyone becomes their own strategist, what happens to the nuance of the law? What happens when two people are using two different online universities with two different strategic philosophies? The friction hasn't disappeared. It has simply moved from the courtroom to the digital cloud. And as we look at the sheer volume of data being uploaded to these platforms, a new question emerges about the security of our most intimate financial and personal secrets. The movement toward these online institutions is more than just a trend in legal tech. It is a fundamental shift in the American identity. We are moving away from a society that relies on institutional experts and toward a society that relies on distributed information and personal agency. But as this shift accelerates, it is creating a massive divide between those who can navigate these digital tools and those who are left behind in the crumbling legacy system. The consequences of this divide will define the economic reality for the next generation of American families. We have explored the mechanics of the digital curriculum and the shift toward pro-SE empowerment, but we haven't yet touched on the most controversial aspect of this new industry. What happens when these universities start teaching offensive strategies rather than just defensive ones? How are individuals using these platforms to preemptively restructure their lives before a separation is even initiated? In the next part, we will dive into the secretive world of pre-divorce planning and the tactical shifts being taught to protect generational wealth before the first legal papers are ever filed. The transition from reactive education to proactive strategy is where the real power lies, and the methods being taught might shock those who still believe in the traditional American dream. The shift from reactive legal defense to proactive educational strategy marks the most significant evolution in the 2026 domestic landscape. To understand the depth of this transition, we must examine the curriculum of the strategic planning modules found within these new digital institutions. Traditionally, the American legal process was triggered by a specific event, a filing, a move-out date, or a formal announcement. However, the new divorce university model operates on the premise that the outcome of a legal separation is often determined 6 to 12 months before anyone ever steps into a courtroom. This is known in the industry as the pre-filing stabilization phase, and it is where the most sophisticated demographic of users is currently focusing their energy. Imagine a high-earning professional named Michael in Austin, Texas. Michael is a software architect with a significant equity stake in a pre-IPO startup and several residential rental properties. In the legacy system, Michael might wait until a conflict reaches a breaking point before seeking counsel. By then, his financial records are disorganized, his spending patterns are erratic, and his digital footprint is a liability. Within the framework of an online divorce academy, Michael enters a specialized track called the Asset Characterization Audit. This is a meticulous, data-heavy process where the student is taught how to establish the clear line between separate and community property long before a petition is drafted. Historical trends in community property states like Texas or California suggest that the commingling of assets is the primary cause of wealth erosion during a legal split. Michael is taught, through a series of forensic accounting simulations, how to trace the origin of every dollar used for down payments on his rental properties. He learns the importance of maintaining strict ledger discipline. The university doesn't tell him to hide assets, which would be a violation of legal ethics and court rules. Instead, it educates him on how to clearly prove what he already legally owns. By using automated software to categorize years of transactions, Michael is preparing a defense against the claim that his premarital savings have become community property. This is a tactical application of the burden of proof, taught not as a legal theory, but as a logistical workflow. The educational depth here goes further into what is called lifestyle engineering. Historical data from across the United States shows that temporary support orders, which are the initial financial payments mandated by a judge, are almost always based on the standard of living established in the months immediately preceding the filing. The online university modules provide case studies showing how erratic, High-end spending in the final months of a marriage can lead to potential outcomes where one party is ordered to pay a level of support that is unsustainable in a post-separation reality. The curriculum teaches students how to normalize their household budget and document true, living expenses with granular detail. For a user like Michael, this means using a dedicated app provided by the university to track every utility bill, grocery receipt, and maintenance costs for a period of 6 months. This creates a baseline of data that is impossible to refute. When the time comes to present a financial affidavit, Michael isn't guessing. He is presenting a verified data set that accurately reflects the needs of the household. This proactive documentation serves to mitigate the risk of inflated support claims, a common friction point in the traditional system. While Michael is focusing on the numbers, another student, let's call her Jessica, a retail executive in Chicago, might be focused on the track titled Custody Preparation and Documentation. In 2026, the standard for child custody in many states has shifted toward a presumption of equal shared parenting, but the implementation of this remains highly contentious. Jessica's curriculum focuses on the concept of the primary caretaker record. For a year prior to any legal action, the university guides Jessica through the process of logging every doctor's appointment, parent-teacher conference, and extracurricular activity. This isn't about creating a narrative. It's about creating a verifiable log of parental involvement. The platform provides a shared calendar interface that syncs with school portals. Jessica learns how to document her involvement in a way that aligns with the best interests of the child standard, used by Illinois courts. This educational preparation prevents the he said, she said arguments that typically dominate the first several months of a custody battle. By the time the legal process begins, Jessica has a 12-month report card of her parental contributions. This level of preparation often leads to potential outcomes where mediation is settled in hours rather than months because the facts are already established and organized. These online institutions are also diving deep into the psychology of the transition. They offer modules on the emotional intelligence of negotiation, teaching students how to identify their own triggers and those of their spouse. They analyze case studies of high-conflict personalities, offering scripts and communication protocols designed to keep interactions professional and focused on the business of the split. This is effectively a form of cognitive behavioral therapy applied to the legal process. By removing the emotional volatility from the equation, the university helps students maintain their strategic focus, preventing them from making impulsive financial concessions just to end the stress of the conflict. The curriculum also addresses a growing demographic reality in the United States: the rise of the digital nomad and the multi-state family. With more Americans working remotely, the question of jurisdiction has become a major strategic battleground. The online university provides deep dives into the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act and how it applies across different state lines. Students are taught how to evaluate the legal climate of different jurisdictions regarding asset division and alimony. This allows individuals to understand the long-term implications of a move before they relocate, preventing them from inadvertently ceding legal advantages by crossing a state line. What we are seeing is the professionalization of the private citizen. The online divorce university is turning the most chaotic experience of a person's life into a structured project management task. This creates a massive advantage for the student. While the uneducated spouse is reacting to the situation with fear and confusion, the university student is operating from a playbook. They are hitting benchmarks, meeting data collection goals, and preparing for every possible legal maneuver with the precision of a corporate merger. This shift has profound implications for the legal profession. As students become more educated, they are demanding a new type of relationship with their attorneys. They no longer want a gatekeeper, they want a consultant. They are showing up to initial consultations with completed financial disclosures, proposed parenting plans, and a list of specific legal questions based on the research they have conducted in the university forums. This is forcing a massive downward pressure on legal fees, as the low-value administrative work is being handled by the client and the technology. However, as the use of these platforms grows, we are seeing the emergence of a new type of digital warfare. Some platforms are beginning to offer modules on digital security and privacy during a separation. This includes how to secure shared cloud accounts, how to audit smart home devices for surveillance, and how to manage a public social media presence during a legal dispute. This is the new frontier of domestic conflict, where the battle is fought in the metadata and the account settings. The power of the proactive model lies in its ability to shorten the duration of the conflict. Historical trends indicate that the longer a legal battle lasts, the more wealth is transferred from the family to the legal system. By educating citizens on how to prepare, document, and strategize before the battle begins, these online institutions are effectively acting as a mechanism for wealth preservation. But as this methodology becomes more common, this is a chilling question. If one side is using a sophisticated, data-driven university strategy and the other side is still playing by the old rules, is it even a fair fight? We have discussed the preparation and the documentation, but we have not yet touched on the most disruptive tool in the university's arsenal: the use of artificial intelligence to predict judicial behavior. In the next part, we will explore how these platforms are using big data to profile individual judges, giving students a terrifyingly accurate preview of how their specific case will likely be decided before they even walk into the courthouse. The integration of big data and predictive analytics into the online divorce university ecosystem has transformed the American legal landscape from a game of emotional endurance into a war of statistical probabilities. To understand how this works in 2026, we have to look at the specific technology driving this evolution: judicial behavioral profiling. For decades, experienced local attorneys held a monopoly on courtroom intuition. A veteran lawyer knew that Judge A was historically stringent regarding temporary alimony, while Judge B consistently favored equal joint custody regardless of the child's age. This local knowledge was used to justify massive billable hour premiums. Today, these digital academies have democratized that intuition by scraping decades of public court records, ruling histories, and motion determinations to build comprehensive, data-driven profiles of individual judges across the country. Imagine an entrepreneur named Robert living in Denver, Colorado. Robert owns a scaling digital marketing agency and is preparing to navigate a complex separation. His case has just been assigned to a specific family court judge in the 2nd Judicial District. In the old paradigm, Robert would have to schedule costly consults with multiple local law firms just to get an assessment of how that specific judge might view his corporate asset valuation. Instead, Robert logs into the advanced predictive module of his online divorce academy. He inputs the judge's name, and the system instantly generates a highly specific, algorithmic breakdown based on hundreds of historical trends and local case studies. The platform provides Robert with a granular breakdown of potential outcomes. The data shows that this specific judge approves out-of-court mediation agreements 92% of the time, but holds a strict historical bias against modifying temporary support orders once they are signed. Furthermore, the analytics reveal that when evaluating business valuations, this judge heavily favors the discounted cash flow method over the market approach in 78% of past rulings. This is not legal advice. It is statistical mapping. Armed with this information, Robert can work with his financial team to structure his corporate disclosures using the exact valuation methodology the judge is statistically predisposed to accept. This eliminates the guesswork and minimizes the risk of a lengthy, contested valuation battle. This data-driven approach goes even deeper into procedural timing. The online university dashboard analyzes court docket congestion data to show students the optimal times to file specific motions. For instance, the system might reveal that in a particular jurisdiction, motions filed on the 2nd Tuesday of the month receive a ruling 40% faster than those filed on a Friday afternoon, due to the court's administrative calendar. This allows pro-se litigants and self-directed individuals to pace their filings with executive precision, utilizing administrative bottlenecks to their strategic advantage rather than becoming victims of them. Now consider a case study involving a project manager named Amanda in Charlotte, North Carolina. Amanda is dealing with a situation where the other party is consistently delaying the discovery process by failing to produce bank statements. In a traditional setting, Amanda would pay her lawyer to write letters back and forth, costing thousands of dollars with zero structural progress. Her online university track, titled Docket Optimization and Motion Strategy, teaches her how to analyze the specific judge's tolerance for discovery delays. The platform provides Amanda with an interactive template for a motion to compel, pre-formatted to match the exact structural preferences that the data shows her judge favors. Amanda is taught how to construct a strict timeline chart detailing every single request made, the exact date of delivery, and the lack of response. By presenting the data in a highly structured, visual format that aligns with the judge's past preferences for concise documentation, Amanda successfully files the motion herself. The data-backed approach works. Case studies within the university forum show that when individuals present cleanly indexed, undeniable timelines, judges are far more likely to award sanctions or attorney fee reimbursements to the non-offending party. Amanda secures a compliance order without spending a single dollar on an adversarial legal letter-writing campaign. This systemic democratization of judicial data is causing massive panic within traditional bar associations. For years, the legal industry relied on the opacity of the court system to justify its fee structures. When the general public has access to the exact same predictive data as a 20-year veteran attorney, the value proposition of the traditional law firm shifts dramatically. The online divorce university model turns the client into the chief strategist, relegating the attorney to a technical consultant who is hired strictly to review documents or make formal appearances. Beyond individual judicial profiling, these platforms are utilizing big data to analyze the opposing counsel. If the other party hires a traditional family lawyer, the student can plug that attorney's name into the university database. The system then analyzes that attorney's historical trends. Does this lawyer have a habit of dragging out cases for 18 months before settling on the courthouse steps? Do they statistically file a high volume of unnecessary motions to inflate billable hours? Or do they typically settle quickly when faced with a highly organized, data-supported counterproposal? For a student like Robert in Denver, knowing the structural tendencies of the opposing lawyer allows him to anticipate their moves. If the data shows the opposing attorney relies heavily on intimidation tactics and inflated initial demands, but consistently backs down when faced with a formal request for a forensic audit, Robert can maintain his composure. He doesn't panic when an aggressive, high-demand letter arrives in his email inbox. He recognizes it as a standard historical pattern for that specific lawyer, and he follows the university protocol. Stay calm, stick to the data, and refuse to engage in emotional posturing. This level of technological empowerment is fundamentally shifting how settlements are negotiated across America in 2026. When both sides are aware of the statistical probabilities, the incentive to engage in high-risk, expensive courtroom litigation plummets. The online university model promotes the concept of data-driven settlement engineering, where proposals are constructed based on the median rulings of similar cases within that specific zip code. It turns a highly volatile personal dispute into an objective math problem. However, this algorithmic revolution introduces an entirely new layer of complexity to modern relationships. As these predictive tools become more widespread, a digital arms race is emerging. What happens when both parties in a separation are utilizing competing online universities, each running their own predictive algorithms against the same judge? The battle ceases to be about who has the better argument and becomes about who has the more sophisticated data model. This creates a fascinating subculture of digital strategy, where individuals are constantly optimization testing their legal filings to see how the software responds. We are watching the total mechanization of family law. The changing demographics of America, combined with the rise of these decentralized educational institutions, are completely dismantling the emotional narrative of the courtroom drama. But as we look closer at this digital transformation, an even deeper, more covert element of the online university curriculum comes to light. It is one thing to profile a judge or analyze a financial statement, but what happens when the university teaches you how to map, track, and analyze your spouse's digital footprint with corporate-grade precision? In the next part, we will expose the highly sophisticated, legally compliant methodologies these platforms are teaching for digital surveillance auditing, data extraction, and tracking the modern digital trail, revealing how a smartphone can become the ultimate witness in a 21st century separation. The digital trail left by modern American life has become the most valuable commodity in the 2026 legal landscape. Within the online divorce university curriculum, this is often categorized as digital forensic literacy. The core philosophy here is simple. In an age where every movement is tracked by a GPS, every purchase is logged in a cloud database, and every private thought is captured in a text string, there is no such thing as a secret. The university modules do not teach illegal hacking or the installation of spyware, as these actions carry severe criminal risks and lead to the immediate exclusion of evidence. Instead, they teach students how to conduct a comprehensive, legally compliant audit of publicly available and shared digital footprints. To visualize how this plays out in the real world, imagine a scenario involving a tech consultant named Marcus in Seattle. Marcus is navigating a separation where his spouse claims a significant drop in income to justify higher support payments. In the legacy system, Marcus would have to wait months for a formal subpoena process to verify these claims. However, through his online academy, Marcus is trained in the digital breadcrumb method. This is a step-by-step process of auditing shared household accounts that the user already has legal access to. Marcus starts with the shared Amazon and grocery delivery accounts. By analyzing the frequency and volume of luxury item purchases delivered to a new address, Marcus can create a dataset that contradicts the claim of financial hardship. He then moves to the shared family cloud storage. Many users forget that their devices automatically back up photos, location data, and metadata to a central account. Marcus is taught how to export the EXIF data from photos taken over the last 6 months. This metadata often contains precise GPS coordinates and timestamps. If the spouse claims to be at a job interview but the photo metadata places them at a high-end resort in Sedona, that data point becomes a critical piece of evidence regarding credibility. The university provides Marcus with a specialized tool, a digital evidence log template. He is taught how to screen record his navigation through these shared accounts to prove the chain of custody, ensuring the evidence is not dismissed as tampered with in court. This level of preparation is about turning the smartphone into a forensic witness. Case studies within the university community show that when a party is presented with a clean, undeniable PDF of their own digital footprints, the potential outcomes for a swift settlement increase dramatically. People are much less likely to pursue a fraudulent claim when they realize the data trail is already in the hands of the other side. Moving beyond financial audits, the curriculum dives deep into social media forensics. We have seen a massive demographic shift where even older generations are now highly active on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. A character like Linda, a 60-year-old in Florida navigating a gray divorce, might not realize that her public posts are being used as a roadmap for her lifestyle. The online university teaches students how to use social media archival tools to capture a snapshot of a spouse's public profile before they have the chance to delete or privatize their history. This is not just about catching someone in a lie. It is about establishing a historical trend of lifestyle. If a spouse claims they cannot work due to a physical ailment, but their public LinkedIn activity shows them attending multiple professional conferences and networking events, the discrepancy is documented. The university provides step-by-step instructions on how to use the Wayback Machine or other internet archiving services to find deleted content. For Linda, this means she can document the high standard of living vacations and social events her husband posted about, which helps her legal consultant argue for an equitable distribution of assets that reflects their actual lifestyle, rather than the diminished one presented in the financial affidavits. The depth of this digital education also covers the emerging world of the Internet of Things, or IoT. In 2026, the average American home is filled with smart devices. The online university offers a module on smart home data auditing. This teaches students how to check the logs of smart doorbells, thermostats, and even smart refrigerators. These logs can prove or disprove residency and visitation claims. For example, if a parent claims a child was in their home during a specific weekend, but the smart thermostat logs show the house was in away mode with no motion detected, and the smart lock was never cycled, the data provides a silent, objective testimony. Another critical area of study is the forensic analysis of Venmo and PayPal transaction histories. Many people treat these apps as casual social tools, leaving their transaction descriptions public or visible to friends. The university curriculum shows students how to map out a spouse's hidden social and financial network simply by analyzing the emojis and comments attached to small payments. Case studies have shown that a series of small, recurring payments to an unknown individual, accompanied by specific emojis, can provide the necessary probable cause for a lawyer to later request a formal deposition or a deeper look into hidden bank accounts. This level of digital literacy creates a massive information advantage. The university also emphasizes a defensive track, the digital hardening protocol. Students are taught how to secure their own data. This involves a step-by-step audit of their own privacy settings, the implementation of two-factor authentication on all private accounts, and the systematic removal of shared access to personal devices. They are taught how to check for unauthorized tracking devices, like AirTags, that might have been placed in their vehicles or belongings. This is an essential survival skill in 2026, where the line between legal research and digital harassment is often blurred. The curriculum even extends into the realm of cryptocurrency and decentralized finance. As more Americans hold assets in digital wallets, the Online Divorce University has added tracks on blockchain transparency. Students are taught how to use public block explorers to track the movement of funds from a shared bank account into a digital exchange. While they cannot hack into a private wallet, they can document the outflow of marital funds into the crypto ecosystem. By proving that $5,000 left the joint account and moved to a known Coinbase address, the student can ensure that the value of that crypto is included in the final asset division. This is the new reality of American divorce. It is no longer just a legal battle, it is a technical audit. The changing demographics of the country mean that the people entering the system today are more tech-savvy and data-dependent than ever before. They are rejecting the traditional, slow-moving legal discovery process in favor of these high-speed, digital education models. They are becoming their own forensic investigators, their own data analysts, and their own strategic planners. This shift is creating a profound ripple effect through the American economy, as billions of dollars in assets are reallocated through these more efficient, data-backed settlements. The traditional legal industry is seeing a massive decline in billable hours for discovery and litigation. But as we look at the total landscape of the online divorce university, there is one final, even more disruptive frontier that we must address. It is the use of artificial intelligence not just for data collection, but for the creation of the settlement itself. Imagine a world where a software program, fed with all the digital evidence, financial data, and judicial profiles we have discussed, can generate an optimized, fair settlement proposal in seconds. This is no longer science fiction. It is the next module in the 2026 curriculum. In the next part, we will explore the rise of the AI mediator and how these platforms are beginning to replace human judgment with algorithmic precision, leading to a future where the courtroom might be entirely bypassed in favor of a computer-generated compromise. The era of the human-led legal system is facing its greatest challenge yet, and the results of this algorithmic shift will change the definition of justice forever. The integration of artificial intelligence into the online divorce university curriculum has moved past simple data sorting and into the realm of complex negotiation and settlement synthesis. In 2026, we are witnessing the rise of the AI mediator, a sophisticated software engine that is effectively replacing the traditional $3,000 a day human neutral. To understand the gravity of this, we must look at how these platforms leverage large language models specifically trained on decades of American case law, state-specific statutes, and thousands of successfully negotiated settlement agreements. This is the settlement engineering module, and it is arguably the most disruptive tool ever introduced into the domestic legal arena. Imagine a couple in Phoenix, Arizona, whom we will call Brian and Elena. Both are in their late 30s, both work in the tech sector, and both are deeply integrated into the digital economy. They have a shared interest in avoiding a multi-year legal battle that would deplete their children's college funds. Instead of hiring two separate adversarial attorneys to trade hostile letters for 6 months, they enroll in a co-parenting and asset division track at a leading online divorce academy. Within this platform, they gain access to an AI settlement architect. The process begins with the ingestion of data. Brian and Elena upload their entire financial lives into the secure university vault. Tax returns, real estate appraisals, 401k statements, stock options, and even their monthly digital subscription costs. The AI does not just list these assets. It analyzes the tax implications of every potential split. It understands that $100,000 in a Roth IRA is not the same as $100,000 in a brokerage account due to future capital gains liabilities. It runs thousands of simulations to find the path of least resistance. The platform then guides them through a series of preference weighting exercises. This is where the magic of the algorithmic approach happens. Brian might value staying in the family home more than he values his share of the liquid cash, while Elena might prioritize immediate liquidity to start a new business venture. The AI mediator uses a game theory algorithm called the adjusted winner procedure. It assigns numerical values to their preferences and calculates a division of assets that maximizes the satisfaction of both parties. This is a mathematical approach to fairness that removes the ego, the spite, and the emotional posturing that typically drags out human negotiations. In this case study, the AI produces a 60-page settlement proposal in under 10 minutes. This document includes a granular parenting plan, a structured schedule for debt retirement, and a tiered alimony structure that adjusts based on future income fluctuations. Historically, a document of this complexity would have required 20 to 40 hours of legal drafting at $400 per hour. For Brian and Elena, the cost was included in their university tuition. Potential outcomes of this approach are profound. Move from the decision to separate to a signed, notarized agreement in 21 days. This level of efficiency is creating a massive demographic shift in how Americans perceive the law. We are moving from a law as a mystery interpreted by priests to law as a service managed by code. The online university teaches its students that the legal system is essentially a giant logic tree. If you provide the right inputs, the outputs are statistically predictable. This realization is stripping the fear out of the process for millions of people. But the AI mediator goes even deeper into the human element. It features a sentiment analysis engine for communication. When Brian and Elena communicate through the university's secure portal, the AI monitors the tone of their messages in real time. If Brian types a message that is laden with high-conflict language or aggressive accusations, the system flags it. It might provide a prompt that says, "Your current message has an 80% probability of triggering a defensive legal response from the other party. Would you like to rewrite this to focus on the financial facts?" It then provides a rewritten, neutral version of the message. This is effectively a digital emotional intelligence coach, preventing the small late-night arguments from escalating into expensive court hearings. The university also utilizes AI for what is known as shadow doxing prevention and forensic verification. As students upload their disclosures, the AI cross-references the data with public records and historical spending patterns. If a student like Brian forgets to mention a small side business or a cryptocurrency wallet that he has used to pay for household items in the past, the AI flags the inconsistency. It tells him, "Your bank statements show recurring payments to an entity that has not been disclosed in your asset list." To ensure the final settlement is legally binding and cannot be overturned for fraud, please clarify this. This protects both parties by ensuring the final agreement is built on a foundation of absolute transparency. We must also consider the impact of this on the American judicial system itself. In 2026, many judges are starting to see the benefits of these university-prepared AI settlements. Because the documents are formatted with forensic precision and follow the exact logic of the state statutes, they are much easier for a judge to review and approve. We are seeing a trend where AI-generated agreements move through the court system at 3 times the speed of traditional attorney-drafted documents. This is creating a two-tiered system of justice: the fast, efficient digital track for those who use the online university models, and the slow, expensive paper-based track for those who remain in the legacy system. Another fascinating element of this AI integration is the predictive modeling of future child-rearing costs. The university's AI analyzes regional inflation data, historical college tuition increases, and the specific healthcare needs of the children involved to create a dynamic child support model. Instead of a flat monthly fee that becomes obsolete within 2 years, the AI proposes a sliding scale model that accounts for the reality of the 2026 economy. This prevents the need for future litigation and modifications, saving families thousands of dollars in the long run. The online divorce university is essentially building a massive decentralized database of human compromise. Every time a couple like Brian and Elena successfully uses the AI to find a middle ground, the algorithm learns. It understands which trade-offs are most commonly accepted and which ones lead to failure. This creates a feedback loop where the settlement proposals become more refined and more likely to be accepted with each passing month. This move toward algorithmic justice is not without its critics. There are deep concerns about the lack of human nuance and the potential for algorithmic bias. But for the average American family watching their net worth evaporate in a contested legal battle, the appeal of a computer-generated compromise is undeniable. It offers a level of objectivity that a human attorney, who has a financial incentive to keep the conflict alive, simply cannot provide. This leads us to a critical junction in our deep dive. We have seen how these universities teach you to prepare, how they teach you to audit the digital trail, and how they use AI to build a settlement. But there is a darker, more complex side to this changing demographic. As these tools become more powerful, they are being used by a new group of people. Those who are not looking for a fair split, but those who are looking to utilize the data to gain an absolute, overwhelming advantage in the high-stakes world of generational wealth. In the next part, we will go inside the elite tracks of these online universities to see how the ultra-wealthy are using these same tools to restructure entire family dynasties before a single word of conflict is ever uttered. We are moving from the world of the average family into the world of the tactical elite, where the digital university is being used to conduct the ultimate wealth protection maneuver. The transition from general public education to high-stakes wealth preservation marks the entrance into the elite tier of the online divorce university ecosystem. In 2026, the demographic of users is no longer just the middle-class professional looking to save on legal fees. It has expanded to include high-net-worth individuals, family office directors, and entrepreneurs who view marriage and its potential dissolution as a complex corporate restructuring event. This is where we encounter the module known as Sovereign Wealth and Asset Shielding Track. This curriculum is not about filling out forms. It is about the long-term, multi-generational engineering of financial structures to ensure that personal domestic volatility does not lead to corporate or familial insolvency. To visualize this level of tactical engagement, imagine a character named Catherine, a founder of a successful fintech scale-up in Silicon Valley with a personal valuation exceeding $50 million. Catherine is not currently facing a crisis, but she is a student of the online university because she understands that historical trends show that high-asset marriages are subject to unique pressures. In the legacy world, Catherine would rely on a postnuptial agreement drafted by a white shoe law firm. In the new paradigm, she uses the university's tools to conduct what is called a structural insulation audit. This audit involves a step-by-step deconstruction of how her business equity is held. The university provides case studies on the transmutation of separate property, a common legal trap where a premarital business becomes a marital asset because the owner used a joint bank account to pay for a minor business expense, or because the spouse provided incidental advice. Catherine is taught how to implement a strict corporate veil protocol. This includes moving her shares into a domestic asset protection trust located in a state like South Dakota or Nevada, which have specific laws designed to shield trust assets from marital claims. The online university provides a roadmap for this process, detailing how to appoint an independent trustee and how to document the gift of shares to the trust so that it is legally distinct from the marital estate. Catherine learns that the key to wealth preservation is not secrecy, but chronological proof. By establishing these structures years in advance, she creates a verifiable paper trail that demonstrates the assets were never intended to be part of the community pool. This is a form of legal hygiene that the university teaches as a mandatory prerequisite for any high net worth individual. The curriculum then moves into the more covert area of intellectual property and future earnings protection. In the 2026 economy, a significant portion of wealth is tied up in intangible assets, patents, proprietary algorithms, and personal brand equity. The online university teaches students how to value these assets today to prevent a spouse from claiming a share of their future explosive growth. For example, Catherine is guided through the process of conducting a formal IP valuation and then licensing that IP to her own company through a holding entity. This move creates a clear, documented value at a specific point in time, which can be used as a baseline in any future negotiation. Consider another case study involving a real estate developer named James in Miami. James has a complex web of limited liability companies, each holding a different commercial property. Historical trends in Florida law indicate that if James manages these properties himself during the marriage, the increase in value of those properties could be considered a marital asset due to his active effort. The online university module on active versus passive appreciation teaches James how to restructure his management team. James is taught how to hire a third-party management firm to handle the day-to-day operations of his portfolio. By stepping back into a purely passive ownership role, James is utilizing a specific legal strategy to ensure that the market-driven appreciation of his buildings remains his separate property. The university provides the templates for these management contracts and teaches James how to document his lack of involvement in the operational decisions. This is not about avoiding responsibility. It is about the strategic delegation of labor to satisfy the rigorous requirements of family court statutes regarding active assets. The elite track of the online university also focuses heavily on the concept of the lifestyle burn rate and its impact on alimony. For high net worth individuals, the standard of living can be an astronomical figure. The university provides a curriculum on expense normalization. Students are taught how to audit their own spending to identify and isolate discretionary luxury costs that could be used to set a high alimony precedent. James learns how to categorize his spending into essential personal expenses versus business-related hospitality. He is taught to maintain separate accounts for high-end travel and entertainment that are clearly funded by business distributions rather than the household budget. This creates a data set that shows a more modest personal lifestyle, which can lead to potential outcomes where alimony is based on actual needs rather than an inflated, high-velocity spending habit. This is tactical budgeting used as a legal defensive shield. The level of sophistication in these elite modules extends into the world of private equity and carried interest. For professionals working in hedge funds or venture capital, the university provides specialized tracks on the valuation of unvested interests and future carry. These are some of the most complex assets to divide in a domestic dispute. The university teaches students how to negotiate buyout clauses within their partnership agreements that specifically address marital dissolution. By including a provision that allows the partnership to buy back a member's interest at a predetermined price in the event of a divorce, the student is protecting the firm and their own long-term standing within the organization. The online university is essentially teaching high-net-worth Americans how to build a legal fortress around their wealth before any threat appears on the horizon. This is a fundamental shift in the demographic of who is preparing for separation. It is no longer a reactive move for the broken-hearted. It is a proactive move for the financially literate. The changing demographics of the United States, characterized by a massive transfer of wealth to a more tech-savvy younger generation, means that these digital tools are becoming the standard operating procedure for the elite. As this trend continues, we are seeing the rise of the premarital digital vault. This is a service offered by some online academies where individuals can upload a complete snapshot of their financial life the day before they get married. This vault is time-stamped and notarized on the blockchain, creating an immutable record of their separate property. It includes bank balances, stock portfolios, and even the condition of real estate. In 2026, this is becoming as common as a prenuptial agreement. It provides an undeniable baseline that can be used decades later to prove what was brought into the marriage. This deep dive into the world of tactical wealth protection reveals a stark reality. The gap between those who are educated in the new rules of the online university and those who are not is widening. The elite are using data, structure, and proactive engineering to ensure that their financial legacies remain intact, regardless of the fate of their personal relationships. They are treating their domestic life with the same level of strategic rigor as a corporate board meeting. But as we look at the immense power being concentrated in these digital tools, we have to ask what this means for the emotional and social fabric of the country. When every marriage is approached as a potential legal battle, and every asset is shielded by a complex web of trusts and LLCs, what happens to the concept of trust itself? We have analyzed the wealth protection maneuvers of the elite, but there is one final critical element of the 2026 landscape that we must address. It is the role of the children of the digital divorce. In the next part, we will explore how these online universities are now creating modules specifically for the next generation, teaching them how to navigate the complex, data-driven splits of their parents. The school for divorce is no longer just for the adults. It is becoming a mandatory curriculum for the entire American family. The integration of the next generation into the online divorce university ecosystem represents the final stage in the total institutionalization of domestic transition in America. By 2026, the curriculum has expanded to include the Youth Transition Track, a series of age-appropriate digital modules designed to help the children of these separations understand the data-driven reality of their new lives. This is not traditional family counseling. This is a tactical education in logistical adaptation. These platforms recognize that when parents utilize high-level strategic tools to restructure their lives, the children are often left navigating a complex, multi-home environment without a manual. To understand how this functions, imagine a 14-year-old in suburban New Jersey named Leo. Leo's parents are currently moving through a highly structured, AI-mediated separation. As part of their university enrollment, Leo is given access to a subportal designed for teenagers. In this space, the abstract emotional turmoil of a divorce is replaced with concrete project management. Leo is taught how to use a synchronized, multi-household calendar app that manages his school assignments, sports practices, and social commitments across 2 different residences. Historical trends in developmental psychology suggest that the primary stressor for children during a split is the loss of predictability and the friction of logistical chaos. The university solves this by teaching Leo how to manage his own digital inventory. He is guided through a module on dual household organization, where he creates a cloud-based checklist of his essential items. The platform teaches him how to maintain a digital ledger of his textbooks, sports gear, and electronics, ensuring that nothing is lost in the transition between homes. This gives Leo a sense of agency and control over his environment, shifting him from a passive victim of his parents' decisions to an active manager of his own routine. The depth of this youth-focused curriculum extends into the realm of digital communication. Leo is taught how to navigate the new boundaries of his parents' relationship. The university provides case studies on healthy digital boundaries, teaching teenagers how to avoid becoming an information conduit between 2 high-conflict or even low-conflict parents. Leo learns the importance of not sharing login credentials or private messages from one parent with the other. This is effectively a course in privacy management and interpersonal diplomacy. By teaching the children the same communication protocols that the parents are learning, the entire family unit moves toward a more professional, less volatile mode of interaction. For younger children, the online university utilizes gamified simulations. Imagine a 7-year-old named Chloe in Denver. Her portal features interactive stories where she helps a character navigate a move between 2 different houses. These stories teach her the vocabulary of the legal process in a non-threatening way. She learns what a parenting plan is, and why her schedule might look different on weekends. By the time Chloe's parents sit her down to discuss the new living arrangements, she has already been exposed to the concepts through her educational games. This reduces the shock and provides a framework for her to ask logical questions. This demographic shift, the professionalization of the child's experience, is creating a new generation of Americans who view family structures not as static, permanent fixtures, but as dynamic systems that can be re-engineered. The potential outcomes of this early exposure to structural change are complex. On one hand, these children are developing extraordinary organizational skills and a high level of digital literacy. On the other hand, they are being socialized into a world where personal relationships are managed through dashboards and data points. The online university also addresses the financial education of the children during this transition. High net worth tracks like the one Catherine and James might utilize include modules on generational wealth continuity. In these sessions, teenagers are taught about the trusts and LLCs that have been created to protect their inheritance. They are given a high-level overview of how these structures work and why they are being implemented. This ensures that the children understand the long-term strategic goals of the family, preventing future resentment or confusion regarding the division of assets. Case studies from across the United States show that when children are included in the educational process, the overall success rate of a mediation increases. When a teenager like Leo can look at a digital dashboard and see exactly where he will be for the next 6 months, the anxiety of the unknown evaporates. He isn't wondering where he will spend Thanksgiving. He is looking at a verified, agreed-upon data set. This clarity allows the children to focus on their own development rather than the instability of their parents. Furthermore, the university provides a peer-to-peer support network for the youth. This is a moderated digital forum where children can connect with others in their specific demographic who are going through similar transitions. A student in New York can talk to a student in California about how they manage the time zone differences during video calls with a non-residential parent. This crowdsourcing of coping strategies is a powerful tool for resilience. They share tips on everything from the best travel bags for frequent transitions to how to explain their family situation to friends at school. This holistic approach to the family unit is what sets the 2026 Divorce University apart from any previous legal or therapeutic model. It is a total system upgrade. It recognizes that a marriage is not just a contract between 2 people, but a foundational structure for an entire ecosystem. When that structure is dismantled and rebuilt, every participant in that ecosystem requires a new set of skills. However, as we look at the rise of the divorce-educated child, we must consider the long-term impact on the institution of marriage itself. These children are growing up with a front-row seat to the calculated, strategic deconstruction of a household. They are seeing the spreadsheets, the judicial profiles, and the AI-generated settlements. They are learning that love is a variable but data is a constant. This is fundamentally altering their own future approach to relationships. We are seeing a trend in 2026 where these young adults, upon reaching 18 or 21, are seeking out their own prenuptial and cohabitation education long before they ever consider a serious relationship. They have seen the curriculum, and they want to be the ones holding the playbook from day one. This cycle of education is creating a demographic of ultra-pragmatic young Americans who view domestic life through the lens of risk management. As we reach the conclusion of this part of our deep dive, we have seen how the online university has colonized every corner of the American home, from the elite wealth protection vaults to the bedrooms of the children. The era of the chaotic, uneducated divorce is ending, replaced by a world of clinical, data-driven transition. But there is one final overarching question that we have yet to answer. In a world where everyone has the tools to perfectly optimize their exit, what happens to the incentive to stay? Is the ease of the digital university actually accelerating the collapse of the American marriage? Or is it simply providing a safer landing for a fall that was already inevitable? In the next part, we will analyze the macroeconomic data of the divorce industry as a whole, looking at the billions of dollars shifting hands and the new corporate titans who are profiting from the dissolution of the American dream. The business of breaking up is the next great American gold rush, and the players involved might be the most powerful people you've never heard of. The business of marital dissolution in the United States has historically been a fragmented, localized industry dominated by thousands of small-scale law firms and independent mediators. However, as we move through 2026, the landscape has been aggressively consolidated by a new breed of corporate titans, the venture-backed legal aggregators. These entities are the true architects behind the online divorce university movement. They have recognized that the domestic transition market is a recession-proof, multi-billion-dollar vertical with massive inefficiencies ripe for technological exploitation. By treating a divorce not as a legal crisis but as a scalable data acquisition event, these companies are building a new American gold rush that is fundamentally altering the flow of generational wealth. To visualize the sheer scale of this corporate takeover, imagine a conglomerate we will call NextGen Equity Partners. NextGen does not market itself as a law firm. Instead, it positions itself as a lifecycle management platform. Through a series of aggressive acquisitions, NextGen now owns 3 of the top 5 online divorce academies, a leading forensic accounting software, and a national network of appraisal services. When a user like David or Sarah clicks on an educational ad for a free asset valuation webinar, they are entering a vertically integrated ecosystem designed to capture every dollar of spend associated with their separation. Historical trends in the legal tech sector show that the customer acquisition cost for a divorce lead is among the highest in the digital marketing world. However, the online university model flips this economics on its head. Instead of paying for a lead and handing it to a lawyer, these corporations provide low-cost educational content that keeps the user engaged for months. During this time, the user is uploading thousands of data points regarding their income, debts, property locations, and spending habits. This data is the real gold. By 2026, these aggregators are utilizing this anonymized, aggregated data to sell insights to mortgage lenders, insurance companies, and wealth management firms who are eager to identify individuals in the midst of a major financial restructuring. Consider the case study of a mid-sized American city like Columbus, Ohio. In the legacy model, 1,000 divorces in Columbus would represent 1,000 different legal strategies and 1,000 different sets of paperwork. In the 2026 aggregator model, 600 of those individuals are using the same NextGen-owned digital platform. This creates a massive economy of scale. The platform uses a centralized backend to process all the filings, utilizing offshore document review teams and high-speed AI to ensure compliance with local Ohio statutes. The profit margins for the corporation are astronomical compared to a traditional law firm, because they have replaced high-cost human labor with a one-time investment in software architecture. This consolidation is also driving a new phenomenon called the divorce-adjacent economy. The online university does not just teach you how to split your assets, it provides a curated marketplace for the aftermath. Within the student dashboard, users are presented with targeted offers for moving services, new apartment leases, credit rebuilding programs, and even therapy apps. Each of these represents a referral fee or a partnership commission for the university. For the corporate titans, the divorce is merely the top of the funnel for a decade-long relationship with a newly single consumer, who is essentially starting their financial life from scratch. Imagine if a single corporation could predict exactly when a household was going to liquidate its primary residence. By analyzing the search queries and document uploads within the university modules, these platforms know about a home listing 6 months before it hits the MLS. In 2026, we are seeing evidence of these legal aggregators partnering with institutional real estate buyers. Case studies have emerged where distressed properties in the midst of a divorce are sold in off-market transactions to corporate landlords, often for a lower price than they would fetch in a public auction, simply because the university platform streamlined the legal paperwork for a quick cash close. This is a massive transfer of equity from American families to institutional investors, facilitated by the very tools designed to help them. The depth of this corporate involvement extends into the lobbying sector. These new titans are among the largest donors to judicial campaigns and state-level legislative committees. They are not lobbying for traditional legal interests. They are lobbying for the simplification of the law to make it more compatible with their software. They push for digital signature mandates, remote hearing requirements, and the standardization of financial disclosure forms across state lines. While these changes are marketed as pro-consumer efficiency measures, they are also designed to lower the barrier to entry for the aggregators' AI systems, further entrenching their market dominance. This leads to a chilling reality for the American public. The very definition of a fair settlement is being influenced by the profit motives of a few centralized platforms. If a university's AI is programmed to favor quick, low-friction settlements to keep its volume high and its processing costs low, is the individual student truly getting the best possible outcome? Historical trends in other tech-disrupted industries, like ride-sharing or food delivery, suggest that initial efficiency often gives way to a system that prioritizes the platform's bottom line over the user's long-term benefit. We must also look at the rise of private equity-backed litigation funding within the university ecosystem. Some platforms are now offering to front the costs of expert witnesses or forensic audits in exchange for a percentage of the final settlement. This is essentially the commodification of legal conflict. For a user who is asset-rich but cash-poor, this can look like a lifeline. However, it introduces a third party into the most intimate of negotiations, one whose only goal is to maximize the return on their investment. In 2026, your divorce settlement might not just be divided between you and your spouse. It might be shaved down by a series of corporate stakeholders who funded your strategy. The changing demographics of America, the rise of the gig economy, the increase in late-life separations, and the growing reliance on digital institutions have created the perfect environment for these corporate players to thrive. They have successfully rebranded the most painful experience of a human life as a manageable educational process. But beneath the user-friendly interface and the empowering language of the online academy lies a cold, calculated machine that views the American family as a data set to be optimized and a revenue stream to be harvested. The scale of this gold rush is staggering. In 2026, the estimated revenue from online divorce platforms and their associated marketplaces has surpassed $15 billion annually. This is not just a shift in how we handle domestic disputes. It is the creation of a new pillar of the American economy. As traditional law firms go bankrupt and family courts become increasingly dependent on private sector technology to manage their caseloads, the power of these aggregators only grows. But as we stand on the precipice of a future where the business of breaking up is a major driver of the GDP, we have to look back at the individual. We have explored the preparation, the digital forensics, the AI mediators, the wealth protection maneuvers of the elite, and the corporate entities profiting from it all. Now we must confront the final, most human chapter of this saga. What is the actual long-term success rate of this data-driven life? Does a perfectly optimized divorce lead to a better life? Or does it simply create a more efficient form of loneliness? In the final part of this masterclass, we will synthesize everything we have learned to answer the ultimate question. In the year 2026, is the American dream being destroyed by the divorce university? Or is it being evolved into something we aren't yet ready to face? The conclusion to this deep dive will reveal the final unspoken truth about the new American domestic reality, and it is a truth that will change the way you look at your own life forever. To fully comprehend the ultimate trajectory of this domestic revolution, we must synthesize the macroeconomic forces, the algorithmic innovations, and the raw human data we have uncovered throughout this masterclass. As we look across the United States in 2026, the question is no longer whether the traditional model of American marriage is undergoing a temporary rough patch. The data proves it is experiencing a permanent structural modification. When an entire society transitions from relying on localized, human-centric, and adversarial legal frameworks to utilizing centralized, data-driven, online educational institutions, the foundational definition of family stability changes. We must evaluate the long-term societal outcomes of this shift, looking beyond the immediate financial savings to the deep psychological and cultural transformations taking place in communities from coast to coast. Consider the holistic life path of an individual who has fully integrated the lessons of the modern online divorce university. Imagine a character named Marcus, whom we discussed earlier as a tech consultant in Seattle. 2 years after utilizing an AI-mediated platform to complete a clean, data-backed separation from his former spouse, Marcus's life looks radically different than it would have in a previous generation. In the legacy system, a multi-year courtroom battle would have left him financially depleted, professionally stagnant, and emotionally embittered. Historical trends show that traditional, highly litigated separations frequently result in a decade of diminished earning capacity and prolonged psychological distress for both adults and children. However, because Marcus utilized a structured digital curriculum, his potential outcomes follow an entirely different trajectory. He preserved 80% of his liquid capital. He avoided the public exposure of his private life. His co-parenting schedule is managed seamlessly by an automated algorithm that minimizes direct conflict. From a purely functional standpoint, the online university model achieved exactly what it advertised. It turned a chaotic human tragedy into a highly optimized logistical transition. Marcus has successfully rebuilt his life, purchased a new residence using the credit preservation strategies taught in the university's post-separation modules, and maintained a stable, predictable environment for his children. Yet, when we look closer at this optimized reality, a deeper, more complex societal truth begins to emerge. By stripping the friction, the mystery, and the exorbitant cost out of the separation process, these digital platforms have inadvertently lowered the systemic barrier to exiting a marriage. When a society makes it as simple to dissolve a contract as it is to enroll in an online course, the psychological calculation of commitment shifts. In 2026, researchers analyzing demographic trends are noticing that couples who encounter standard marital difficulties are increasingly bypassing traditional marriage counseling in favor of researching separation logistics on online platforms. The ease of the digital exit strategy becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, creating a cultural environment where relationship longevity is viewed not as a sacred obligation, but as a luxury asset with a depreciating return on investment. This brings us to the core philosophical tension of the modern American domestic landscape. The online divorce university is a symptom of a highly atomized, tech-dependent culture that prioritizes personal agency and financial optimization above all else. Evolving demographic data indicates that younger generations, having watched the financial destruction of their parents' traditional marriages, are entering relationships with a profound sense of pragmatism. They are utilizing the premarital tracks of these online institutions to draft cohabitation agreements and asset segregation protocols before they even move into a shared apartment. They are treating love like a business partnership, complete with exit clauses, risk assessments, and algorithmic contingencies. To understand the long-term impact of this hyper-pragmatism, let us examine a final case study involving a young couple in Austin, Texas, whom we will call Taylor and Jordan. Both are 26, both work in the creator economy, and both are deeply fluent in digital tools. They decide to marry in 2026, but before they sign the state-issued license, they complete a mandatory 3-month curriculum at an online domestic academy titled Premarital System Design. They do not view this as unromantic. They view it as the ultimate form of modern responsibility. The platform guides Taylor and Jordan through an objective analysis of historical trends regarding wealth accumulation, dual income taxes, and child-rearing costs. They input their current financial trajectories and run simulations on how a future relocation, a career pivot, or the birth of a child will affect their independent and joint estates. The AI generates a dynamic prenuptial architecture that automatically updates its asset division percentages based on the duration of the marriage and the shifting financial contributions of each party. Taylor and Jordan enter their marriage with absolute transparency, fully aware of the statistical probabilities and the exact logistical blueprint of their relationship. The potential outcomes for Taylor and Jordan are dual-faceted. On one hand, they have eliminated the ambiguity and the unset expectations that historically fuel domestic conflict. They are operating from a shared data set. On the other hand, by codifying the exact mechanics of a potential split before the marriage has even begun, they have fundamentally altered the emotional landscape of their commitment. The shadow of the exit strategy is permanently cast over their relationship. Every financial decision, every career choice, and every family planning discussion is filtered through the lens of the system design they created online. They have successfully minimized their risk, but they have also bounded their vulnerability. This is the ultimate, unspoken truth of the changing demographics and the new online divorce universities in America. We are not witnessing the destruction of the American family. We are witnessing its mechanization. The digital space has successfully unbundled the legal, financial, and emotional components of marriage, allowing individuals to manage each variable with the precision of a corporate executive. This technological evolution provides unprecedented protection for wealth, streamlines the administrative burden on our failing court systems, and equips citizens with extraordinary tools for self-directed strategy. It is an unstoppable macroeconomic shift driven by a society that demands efficiency, clarity, and personal autonomy above all things. But as the business of breaking up continues to scale into a dominant sector of the digital economy, and as the algorithms become more sophisticated at predicting and engineering human compromise, the ultimate cost of this optimization is borne by the concept of unconditional commitment itself. The American dream is not disappearing. It is being rewritten in the language of metadata, trusts, LLCs, and predictive analytics. It is a world where the educated citizen operates with a comprehensive playbook, where the data is always clean, and where the transition is always smooth. As we conclude this masterclass on the shifting tectonic plates of American society, the final realization is that you can no longer afford to view your personal relationships through an outdated, 20th century lens. Whether you are currently married, planning a future partnership, or navigating a separation, the rules of engagement have permanently shifted. The data has been decentralized, the gatekeepers have been bypassed, and the curriculum is live. The only remaining question is whether you will choose to remain a passive observer of these shifting demographic tides, or whether you will equip yourself with the systemic literacy required to survive and thrive in this new digital frontier. The evolution of the American household is already underway, and the data-driven future waits for no one.